So let's talk about stagflation. Definitely pertinent in the news. That's what everyone seems to be afraid of now, with the job numbers not coming out too great, and now the job numbers not being released. The worries that, despite the government bringing down interest rates, that's not going to fix unemployment, and you'll actually end up having high inflation and high unemployment, which is essentially what stagflation is. But let's just talk about it in the context of the Phillips curve and what the Federal Reserve can actually do. So to start off with, the Phillips curve pretty much says as unemployment gets lower, inflation gets higher. As unemployment gets higher, inflation gets lower. So let's just think about that logically. If unemployment is low, more people are working. If more people are working, they're making more money as a whole. They're then going to be spending more money. More money chasing a limited amount of goods causes inflation. So inflation can almost be a good thing. That means that the economy is growing. Now, vice versa, the economy gets overheated. The Fed starts increasing interest rates past the point of inflation, right, to bring down inflation. Now, all of a sudden, the opposite's happening. Companies are going to shrink because, they can't borrow at a cheaper rate. So they're going to contract their operations. If they're going to contract their operations, people are going to be working less. If people are working less, they're going to have less money, and if they're going to have less money, then naturally they're not going to be spending as much. So inflation is not going to increase as much. Usually, you're not going to get to the point of deflation. Deflation generally happens in a depression or a pretty severe recession for prices to actually go down, but they're just not going to go up as much, which is sometimes called disinflation, which is just, you know, a a lessening of the second derivative. So it's not increasing as much as it was before. I always use the analogy of kind of, velocity versus acceleration. Same thing. It's like the actual prices are still rising, just the rate of them rising is not rising as much. Now, going back to stagflation, stagflation is what happens when you have the worst of both worlds. What essentially with unemployment high and inflation high. So you can't really win. I mean that happened in the 80s with the whole issue with there was a gas crisis, and that kind of caused inflation to be high and unemployment to be high, and it ends up being a really terrible scenario and takes many years to get out of, and kind of the worst of both worlds because how are you going to fix it? Because usually one of the Fed's big tools to fix unemployment is bring down interest rates, and then if you bring it down to near zero and it's still not working, what are you going to do, right? And just to explain the concept of why they bring down interest rates to near zero to spur economic activity, basically by bringing down the interest rate, whether it's most commonly open market operations, they can change the discount rate, they can change the reserve requirement. That's going to allow people to borrow money and corporations at a cheaper rate, and they're more likely to hire people. So if you think about yourself, would you rather start a business borrowing money at 3%, or would you rather start a business borrowing money at 8? At 3%, you're willing to risk it a lot more than at 8%, where you can get in real trouble. So again, stagflation, high unemployment, high inflation, Phillips curve, unemployment and inflation are inverted. Thanks, and keep listening for more.